can't ever see myself.
Hey guys, welcome back to Monday Night Mythbusters. I'm Dr. Carolyn George and Leslie Harrington.
Hi guys.
So I'm from Vita Integrative Medicine and she's my transformational coach, a la extraordinaire. And tonight we're going to be talking on something that I think touches the hearts of a lot of people. We're speaking about cravings, specifically food cravings, although there's other cravings that we can talk about. But food cravings are a really tough topic because it involves so much. So we're going to touch a little bit on physiology and then kind of take it from the big picture and bring it down to certain foods that you might be craving and what that might be telling you about what your body actually needs. So as you guys are listening, if you have any specific food cravings that you're wondering about, please type them in. If you have any particular ways that you use of dealing with your food cravings, again, shout them out to us and share them with everybody. We like this to be a little bit of a forum to help, for people to help each other. And we'll kind of dive in. Hey there, Nick. Hey, Marianne. Hey, Brian.
Hi, guys.
Thanks for joining. So for those of you who are new to our Facebook Live and Monday Night Mythbusters, we try to kind of capture some of this important issues that are going on and kind of hone in on a small area. So tonight, cravings. So first thing I like to talk about with cravings is some of the physiology, and I don't want to get too high tech, but there's a few hormones that you would really need to understand about to understand cravings and how you can help to manipulate your own cravings. So first, there's ghrelin. That's with the GR, ghrelin.
I think of like a gremlin.
Yeah, like a gremlin. And
that's how I remember ghrelin.
Right, no, it's a good way to think about it because that's the hormone that tells you you're hungry. And it's made in your stomach. And so when you get hungry, when your stomach's empty, you're in that fasting state, it will start to secrete ghrelin that tells you to eat. The other hormone that balances that is called leptin, and that's the one that tells you that you're not hungry anymore. And that's actually made in your adipose tissue, in your fat tissue. And so when your leptin is high, then you're not hungry. So you need a balance of leptin and ghrelin in order to not be starving and not overeat.
And to tell you you're satiated, yeah.
Right. And you need to be listening to your body, right? Which is something that many people don't do. You either just eat whether you're hungry or not, or you don't eat when you're starving, and then your body stops signaling you because you're just not listening anyways.
Yeah, and that just goes back to the basics of mindful eating. Being even aware. Some people don't even know they have cravings because they just kind of might blow right through it. Mm-hmm. They're just eating and they're not paying attention to cravings. So Brian says that pizza actually has a couple components to it because you've got the cheese and the dairy and you've also got the bread and the carbs, and so it's not only kind of a high carb food and something that's gonna typically cause your blood sugar to go up and then kind of crash, right, which can cause additional cravings for more sugar or carb type food. But then also your body could be telling you something nutrient wise also. So we're going to tap into a little bit of nutrient deficiencies and how they can relate to different types of cravings, and then some of the foods specifically, what might be happening in your body or what your body might be trying to tell you.
So those first two, the leptin and the ghrelin, have to do with hunger. And so it's important to differentiate hunger from cravings. Hunger is when you physiologically need some more energy. Your body is saying, okay, I'm getting depleted. I need to stock up on the stores of nutrition. But craving is much more a brain thing. It has to do with what's going on in this area called your prefrontal cortex. So that's a big part of what we use to kind of decide what we want. And that has a lot to do with another hormone called dopamine. And dopamine is a hormone that is, what did he say? We were just reading an article, we call it the Kim Kardashian of hormones. So when you do something well, you get that pat on your back, you get, oh, you're so lovely, you're great, you're awesome, right? It's that kind of hormone that kind of really gives you that feedback that you're doing a great job and job well done.
Like whatever you just did, do it again.
Do it again, do it again. It hits those pleasure centers, and so you feel really good. And so whether that is eating a chocolate bar, making a beautiful meal, winning at gambling, that dopamine gets secreted. And so we're not going to talk much about the addiction part of cravings, but it really involves that dopamine hormone too.
Yeah, and I like to think too, sometimes I'll just be like, if I could eat like a bunch of raw vegetables right now, I'm hungry. So ask yourself, if you go to the refrigerator and you're hungry, could you eat something really, really healthy and feel like, okay, I need to eat a carrot right now because I'm not hungry, versus like, oh, what am I looking for?
I want some
or
chips.
you're
I want
looking for
salty.
something. Yeah, so really being mindful if you're looking for something crunchy or something smooth, or the texture's important, the type of food, but if you're hungry for like real healthy, clean stuff, you're hungry. You're hungry.
Right. So that's, again, part of tuning into your body and figuring out, okay, hunger, craving. What is it? What do I need to be doing? So we've got the ghrelin, we've got the leptin, and we've got the dopamine. These are all important hormones in terms of how to kind of manage this. So the dopamine piece is important because initially you're eating something or doing something and you get that pat on the back. Well, your body wants more of that. So then the next time you do it, you might get a little bit less of a pat, and eventually what you're doing isn't really so much for the pleasure, it's become more of a habit. So, for example, say your mother always takes you out when you're sad and gets you ice cream. So initially, there's no connection, but you do that over time, there becomes a connection. Sadness, ice cream, pat on the back, I feel better. And I'm having time with my mother, and that's kind of, it fills a void. And so then you get older, and now you're out on your own, and something sad happens, you just automatically go for the ice cream, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of associations that we create. It's like the story we tell of ourselves with a lot of different scenarios in our lives, but the things that click in your brain at that individual time that immediately associates the pleasure with the act of eating ice cream, or even it could be movies and popcorn, it could be anything. That you've made that tight association with. And once you've made that association and then it became cyclical because of the habit piece of it, it can become sort of a crazy domino effect, and it just runs in circles. So getting a grip on that and becoming aware of that can be, but the awareness alone is not going to necessarily fix the problem. You have to understand the void that you're trying to fill, and then figure out, you can make a lot of changes behaviorally to switch and go for something more healthy, but how are you still going to soothe that part of whatever you're feeling? And it could be a sadness, it could be happiness. It's a matter of sitting in that feeling and experiencing it, or finding something else that's going to give you that same comfort that's more healthy and serves you better.
Go for a massage, go for a walk, pet an animal. There's all kinds of things that you can do to fill those voids, and the key thing though is to tune into that, to figure out, okay, am I eating right now because I'm hungry, because I'm sad, because I'm lonely, because I'm bored, because this is something I would have done with a special family member? I mean, there's a zillion reasons why you might eat, and just understanding that and not necessarily holding that in judgment. It's not wrong, but just becoming aware of it so that you can choose, okay, well, that is really because I'm sad right now. What else could I do to help deal with that rather than eat my bowl of ice cream?
Exactly.
And Brian mentions about
the toys.
The toys.
That's why I was trying to find it in here because it goes by so quick.
So that's really huge, and these big companies do this in many different ways. So McDonald's, we know for this, but there's other companies that do it. They're not alone. So they've got that whole play area, and they've got the toys and the Happy Meals that they give you. Even look at the name that they call it, right? A Happy Meal. So this then the kids associate going to McDonald's with getting a toy, with playing with friends, with having time with mom or dad. And so it's a whole array of feelings that this kind of connects the food to. The food doesn't have to be healthy or tasty. It just is connected to all these other events, and then you want to do them. They are creating McDonald's patrons for life by doing this. It's very smart. But once you recognize you're being manipulated, you can go, okay, well, yeah, maybe I don't want to be manipulated. Okay, the toys are really, really junky little toys. They fall apart. So you can think about that and then unwind it.
Yeah, and the food companies aren't ignorant to the science either, right? So the food companies actually develop things that talk to your dopamine. They're doing things and putting things in our food that are really genuinely manipulating us. And It's unfortunate, and Dr. Hyman does a lot of conversations around this with some big food people. But there's some stuff that will cause cravings as a result simply of some of the chemicals that are being put in the food, especially processed food.
Processed food.
So nobody here eats processed food.
Right.
So
Oh,
we're
never,
good.
Never.
You guys are good.
But when you do, you just want to look at those ingredients and be aware, okay, I'm probably being manipulated here by sugar or salt or fat or other chemicals that they put in there. They put in things that make us smell differently. So much of our taste and appetite is the smell. Yeah. So they are absolutely 100%. Anything that's in a package is manipulating us in some way through the marketing, through the taste, through the ingredients. So once you start to become aware of that and become a little bit more skillful at kind of going, okay, do I really want this food? Is this something that's going to help my body feel healthy? Then you can be a little smarter than those companies and not let them manipulate you like that.
Yes, definitely.
So these are all part of cravings. Cravings are not just, one thing. Cravings run the gamut of all of our emotions.
Yeah.
And all of our life experience, right? So it's really important to kind of tune into, just kind of think about it. Oh, I'm really craving this food. Could it be because of a family event, a taste went with somebody, or sadness, or boredom, or whatever? So again, we're reiterating a lot, but a lot of it can be these emotional connections, filling that void.
I find with so many people that I work with that it's very little about the food itself, right? And some people are super educated and they know what to eat and they just still don't do it. And then there's people that really genuinely don't know.
Right.
So then when they learn, they still have to battle some of these other underlying cravings for the things that, even though they know what to eat now they're like, oh my gosh, how do I make that transition? Obviously when you start to eat cleaner foods, you actually will crave cleaner foods. So it's like you eat more sugar, you'll crave more sugar. A lot of that has to do with the blood sugar in your body. When you're stabilizing your blood sugar by eating the appropriate foods, you do tend to crave more vegetables. If you eat a lot of protein, you might crave a little bit more protein than normal. So that's actually a normal part of eating. So you can train yourself to kind of go and start to crave some of the other foods just like that.
Yeah. So now let's just talk about a few kind of the overarching things that go into cravings. And one's nutrition, the other is sleep, and the other is stress and exercise. So just kind of touching on nutrition initially. So sometimes when you're craving foods, it's because you're deficient in something. So you maybe are deficient in protein, and that typically will make you crave sweets. Maybe you're deficient in iron, that might make you crave meat. So we're going to look at the end here, we're going to talk about some specific food cravings, but really nutrient deficiencies are a big reason why you might be craving something. And our bodies are very, very wise. They're really tuned into things, and when they know through evolution that they've gotten certain nutrients from certain foods, your body is going to inherently make you crave that food.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different amino acids also. A lot of very specific ones to different foods, but you can be missing certain amino acids in your body. And some of amino acids your body actually can make, and other ones they can't. You have to consume them. And so sometimes it can be something that is one that your body's not making, or one that you're not consuming. So being aware of making sure you're getting all the amino acids is something that's key. But sometimes really specific cravings are associated with very specific amino acids.
And other things. So there's some weird cravings. For example, people will crave ice when they're iron deficient. People that really want to chew on ice, it's a well-known craving for iron deficiency. But some people will also crave meat and just not be able to get enough meat, right? Really want to go for their beef. So they're really looking at those nutrient deficiencies. Salt, another key thing. We often crave salts and magnesium, and magnesium is one of the nutrients that we're most deficient in, one of the minerals that we're, as a population, most deficient in. So then we'll crave something salty, something, your chips, your Doritos, right? Which is,
It's always
don't really have that much magnesium in them, but your body can be fooled by that.
Yeah. So some of the things you can do actually to pay attention to craving more healthy foods, exercise is a big aspect of that. So exercise can go both ways, depending on the type of exercise you're doing. If you're over exercising, sometimes that will actually lead you to crave more. And part of that has to do with blood sugar changes as well. The other thing is exercising, if you're not getting a lot of activity in, that will actually help stabilize. So exercise is a way to actually control some of your cravings.
Right, and they've done some studies that show that when you exercise vigorously but not over-exercising, that you generally decrease the amount of foods that you crave, unless you exercise in the cold. So when you exercise like in cold water, for example, your body burns a lot of the fat, and so then you actually might increase your appetite doing that. But in general, especially in South Florida here, we're not going to be too cold, we're not going to be in the ice or cold water, and so generally that's going to help minimize your cravings.
Yeah, and sometimes increasing an appetite is actually consistent with getting more intense exercise too. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of the difference between being hungry and having cravings.
Right.
So that's where the distinguishing what you're hungry for and what are you really craving. So that's something to be aware of too. If you, I hear people all the time go, I don't like to exercise. When I exercise, I'm really hungry. It's okay. Just eat the right foods and nourish your body, because it's talking to you then as well. You know, it's part of listening to your body.
And keep in mind that more than 50% of the time when people feel that they're hungry, especially after exercise, they're actually thirsty.
Dehydrated.
So go for the water first, because you're probably actually a little dehydrated if you've been exercising too. The other thing to keep in mind, Leslie mentioned over-exercising. So if you over-exercise, then you burn all of the glycogen in your muscle. And then your body is going to crave those carbs to try to replace your muscle glycogen, which is your short-term storage form for energy. So over-exercising, not good. Watch out for dehydration, but exercise consistently and getting your heart rate up there is really a good way to kind of balance and not have a lot of those cravings.
The other thing is using different spices in your food. So cooking, get a little creative with your cooking. Sometimes something as simple as adding flavor can deter you. And just like you can kind of train your brain to be attracted to certain foods, you can train your brain the other way too.
Yes.
And you can train your brain to be attracted to good foods. So it's as much as your brain has a primal instinct and a survival instinct, you can play with that a little, especially the more aware of it you are, the more you have control over how you can manipulate it with the good foods that you eat.
Yes, absolutely. So another huge topic is sleep. Okay, and anybody that's been a patient of mine, we talk a lot about sleep, because lack of sleep or poor quality sleep affects every aspect of your life, but nowhere more than cravings. So they've done all kinds of studies where they look at people, and just 24 hours of sleep deprivation increases your cravings for all kinds of, in general, sugars to try to boost your energy. And they actually show that your brain, with that 24 hours of lack of sleep, your brain actually doesn't get as much sugar going to it, doesn't get as much blood sugar getting into the brain. And so it's a self-preservation mechanism to then want to make you crave these sweet things, because it's looking to get more sugar so it can function. But it can't clean itself when you don't sleep, because we've talked about this before in previous Facebook Lives. But that's when your brain actually flushes out all of the end products of metabolism, is when you're sleeping. If you're not sleeping, it's not happening, and then your whole metabolic process kind of slows down, and the sugar's not coming in, and the inflammation goes up. So sleep.
And, on top of that, the studies that show, the 24-hour studies, you're, I think, 30% more insulin resistant the following day. So now, even if you're eating these sweet things, now your body can't even utilize it properly. So like somebody, one bad night of sleep can trickle into like this whole days of recovery and send you into some of these cravings that in turn start to build on the dopamine system, and then it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. It's a vicious cycle. So Cheryl asked, why would someone hardly ever feel hungry? I would sometimes, I see that a lot. I see a lot of people, I'm not really hungry till 3, 4 in the afternoon. And part of that is because if you're not eating except for one meal late in the day, you're probably not consuming nearly the amount of calories that your body needs to survive. And I'm not big on calorie counting or anything like that, but when you're not eating enough calories, your body innately, our bodies are very smart. They're very sophisticated. And if you're not giving it enough energy and fuel to beat your heart, to run your blood system, to detox your liver, to digest your food. I mean, 80% of our energy is in our digestion. And if you're not giving enough of that, it takes fuel for the body to do that. And it's smart enough to say, you know what, I don't have enough like wood on my fire here. I've got to slow everything down. So now everything slows down. So not just your metabolism, everything in your body, that all of the functions I just described plus others don't roll in the way that they're supposed to. So sometimes that's why, to get people to get hungry, sometimes you got to force them to eat a little bit, find some way to give yourself something.
Doing all those things, eating more of the healthy foods, making sure that you're exercising, because a lot of people are hungry because they've got a very sedentary job. They don't use much of their energy, so they've got to really make sure that you're exercising, and that will really help not only your sleep but your hunger. And some people just don't seem to make that much of the ghrelin, which is the hormone that makes you feel hungry. And other people are in that state of, okay, just kind of pushing through, I've got too much to do, and they don't pay attention to their bodies. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons it could be, but really trying to, hey, what's this feeling that's going on here in my belly? Is it hungry? Is it not hungry? And then paying attention, not ignoring it because you're busy or your boss is yelling at you to finish a project or something, right?
Yeah, the other thing is taking care of your gut microbiome. So we talk a lot about the connection between the gut and the brain and all the different things that happen, you know, like our melatonin's produced in the gut, some of the serotonin's produced. There's so much
70% of
communication going from the gut to the brain, not just the gut to the, actually the gut, and tell me if you've read this, the gut communication, there's more communication from the gut to the brain versus the brain to that than any other body part. So your brain directs and is running the show for everything in your body except for your gut. Your gut is sending more messages to your brain than your brain is to your gut. And that's really key, because some of these things that we're talking about that are secreted in the gut are doing a lot of, they're very powerful neurotransmitters, hormones, and they're very much involved in this process. So the more that you have a healthy microbiome and you're able to nurture your gut, keep the right foods, feed it the right foods, work through any, if you have gut issues, making sure you're identifying the cause of them, and you know, getting on whatever you need to get on to get your the vulnerability back stable.
Microbiome, I mean, I can talk every day about this.
We need to do something just on microbiome.
But it influences
and it will be
everything.
It messes with everything. Show's over.
Everything. Just
the end.
Have a healthy one. Don't try to avoid antibiotics and feed them. Is the key thing. But Leslie mentioned serotonin, and serotonin is also very big in cravings. Not as big as dopamine, but we make most of our serotonin in our gut. So if we don't have a healthy microbiome, then we're not making that healthy serotonin, which also affects melatonin, which affects sleep, and you know, the body's a web, so everything affects everything else. So start one place and start to make some changes in one place, and you'll start to feel it everywhere else.
So Brian says sleep apnea, of course, absolutely can play a role. If you're not sleeping, really at the end of the day, that goes with disruptive sleep and not getting some of the benefits and the restoration that happens during sleep. So it definitely.
And Cheryl's asking to use the gut test by Viome. I'm starting to look at some of those, but I'm not.
I just retested, so we're digging.
I use some other tests, but I think there's lots of stuff starting to come out, so it's really interesting what's going on, and we're going to learn more and more. The next 10 years, it's just really going to explode in terms of what we understand.
Let's talk a little bit about specific cravings. So you mentioned pizza. Cheese has to do with tyramine, essential fatty acids.
Right.
Is it
tyramine? Is an amino acid.
Yeah, amino acid, and then also it can be associated with stress. So that's not just for any dairy, it's really specifically for cheese. Let's see, high carb food, so chromium, hypoglycemia, I talked about blood sugar stabilization a lot. If for high food, you really want to kind of shift your gears when you're dealing with high carb type foods and look at more of the healthy fats. The healthy fats are going to fuel your body, it's going to fuel your brain, and it might shift some of those carb cravings because your body has the fuel that it needs from a different source of energy, which is the cleaner fats. Chocolate is interesting, and I know chocolate's, which is surprising to me because I'm a chocolate freak and I'm not magnesium deficient. But magnesium, like Dr. George mentioned, is one of the most critical minerals in our body. It's responsible for over 300 different enzymatic functions. So when that's deficient, there's a lot of stuff that can break down. And because it's deficient primarily in our soil, as a society, most of us have some issues with. Yeah. So magnesium is chocolate, and one of the things is chocolate. Other things you can get magnesium is dark leafy greens, your nuts and seeds. There's other really good foods you can get that can kind of help satisfy that craving. Not that chocolate is tragic. If you're eating high dark chocolate in small doses, not a bad thing. There's benefits to that also.
Yeah, and I just want to add another little point. So with chocolate, when we see people that are craving chocolate, it's not only the magnesium, but chocolate gives us a little dopamine kick. And so if you're having real cocoa in your chocolate, not the Hershey's milk chocolate, but a real cacao, like 70, 75, 80% or higher, that's actually can be very valid. It's an antioxidant. It helps the dopamine.
Yeah.
It gives you your magnesium. You're not eating 3 bars. You're having a square or 2.
That's why you don't usually crave. Like most people don't pound a dark chocolate bar.
No, really.
You have a little bit, and it's so rich. It kind of gives you that.
And there you've got your sweet for the day, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. Right?
Yeah.
So it can be good.
Yeah.
Just watch the quality, organic if you can, and the dark higher percentages.
So salty and crunchy. Sometimes again that can be stress. Sometimes the texture. You hear comfort foods, right? So comfort foods sometimes, depending also on the association and some of the things we talked about earlier, that smooth texture sometimes can be smoothing. So if you're eating ice cream or you're looking at mashed potatoes or something like that, that can be a little bit more of a cruncher sometimes, or comfort. Sometimes when you're craving crunch, have you ever noticed like you're stressed and you're like, it is literally like that texture can kind of almost satisfy that
I think
anxiety.
You're clenching, you're using some muscles, otherwise your jaws might tighten up because but
it's interesting how we do that, and notice that you'll be more aware now that you hear that. The other thing is it could be a chloride issue. So having a little bit, make sure you're hydrating well, and make sure you have a little bit of salt, and make sure that your sodium levels are good.
Right.
In red meat, we talked about red meat, very common to have iron, iron imbalances. Let's see, sometimes zinc too, it says, and low stomach acid. So low stomach acid meaning that can potentially mean that you're not breaking it down very well.
Right.
So even though you're eating it, you might not necessarily be getting that iron
good quality
from it and getting what your body's craving. Sweets we talked about, definitely going to be a blood sugar thing most often. There's all kinds of reasons that we crave sweets. I think that's going to be potentially a lot more associated with the brain and the neurotransmitters than sometimes the sweet itself. And then of course there's the blood sugar and the things that cause. The more that you're kind of going on that roller coaster through carbs and sugar, the more that you go into that dip, your body's going to immediately want to take you back up and crave that other sweet.
And it comes together with stress. So when you're stressed, you get more insulin resistant. So you have that bigger swing, and you really want the energy, right? Because you just...
And cortisol alone can actually raise blood sugar as well.
Yeah.
So that can then throw you right into sweets.
So working with your stress in other more appropriate ways. So massages, walks in nature, being with animals, sleep, exercise, meditation, all of these things can help stress much better than that ice cream cone.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I was mentioning finding like those healthy activities that serve you. And sometimes it's a matter of like writing down, like, how does this feel good for me? And what does this make me feel like? Because most often when we have these cravings, there's guilt associated.
Yeah.
If you indulge on the craving, then you're kicking yourself, you're beating yourself up, raising your cortisol more, and probably making the situation much worse.
All that negative self-talk. And then you go, oh, I'm so bad, I might as well just have the whole container.
Yeah, and then you do the whole throw in the
you
towel.
You just do the throw in the towel thing, and it's not healthy. Right?
Yeah. And if you have that feeling, like we said, the small indulgence, and then forgiving yourself is going to be better than that cycle of beating up, and then the next day you're insulin resistant, then you don't sleep that night, then everything's off whack. But just being aware, you'll start to feel that it doesn't feel good for you. And it's a matter of the balance too is how bad it makes you feel versus how good you think it makes you feel,
right.
and how do you make the decision in that time in between. And that's like a big thing that I work on with a lot of people, is like what's really going on in that gap.
Yeah, and that's huge. And then if you go ahead and indulge the craving, then what I suggest to people is I don't want you to do the negative kind of beat yourself up. So have whatever it is you're craving, but don't just scarf it down. Taste it, right? Smell it, feel the texture on your tongue. What's the flavor in your teeth, in the back of your throat? How does it make you feel? Just really enjoy it, rather than, you know, guiltily getting it out of the bowl or off the plate or whatever the food is, but enjoy it. And then sometimes you don't need as much. You go, oh wow, that was really good, I've had enough.
But also notice the feeling that it's giving you, and what is it really serving. So if you're feeling sad, you don't even know you're sad, and you're indulging in this craving. Are you feeling comforted all of a sudden? Are you feeling calmer? Are you feeling nurtured? Are you feeling less lonely? If that food is having that much power, then that's what you have to identify as, okay, what do I really need to be doing right now? You might need to be just sitting there and sitting in an emotion that you need to address, you know, in that moment, or doing something more productive that would serve your body and your mind in a way that offers you that same comfort and calm. It's just identifying how and what that's going to be.
Right.
You know, so really getting in touch with that. So yeah, we could probably go on a lot
right?
like
so
every week, right?
There's lots. So does anybody have any questions? We're a little bit over time, but if you've got any specific foods that you want to ask about and shout out, or thumbs up or thumbs down, sideways, whichever way.
Yeah, thank you guys for your input too.
Yes. Anyway, so next week we are going to be discussing about breast cancer, because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So please throw in any questions you've got about breast cancer and how to prevent breast cancer, as well as how to identify it earlier, which is what mammograms do. I always like to make it clear that the mammograms do not prevent breast cancer. They just find it hopefully at an earlier stage. So we're going to talk about all those things next week, and just shoot out your questions and we'll dive into them. And thank you, Barb, for watching. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, everybody,
thank you guys
for listening in. We really love having you guys here. And please, if you know of anybody that might be interested in this, just go ahead and share it with them. We will post this on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And if people don't have Facebook, because I know it seems odd, but there are people without Facebook. So we try to make sure that we're getting exposure to whoever might be interested in different formats. Okay, thanks guys.
Have a great night.
Have a great night.